My mom was buried on a Thursday. My dad was in Paris. With his assistant. That's what he called her. Even when her photos stopped looking like office parties and started looking like vacations. When Mom got sick, he said work was demanding. When she went into hospice, he said flights were expensive. When she died, he sent flowers. White lilies. With a printed card. Regretfully unable to attend. People whispered at the funeral. Some out of sympathy. Some out of judgment. I didn't defend him. Because I knew something they didn't. Mom had changed her will 3 weeks before she passed. I was there when she signed it.
Calm.
Clear-minded.
Certain.
You don't reward abandonment, she told me quietly. I thought she meant emotionally. I didn't realize how literal she was being. The service was small. Rain tapping against the chapel windows. Family friends. A few distant relatives. And one empty seat in the front row. Reserved for my father. After the burial, everyone gathered at the house. The house my parents built together. The house Dad insisted he'd never leave. Until he practically moved out without saying it. At 8:47 p.m., my phone buzzed.
Dad.
I stepped into the kitchen to answer. Is it over? He asked casually, like he'd missed a meeting. Yes. How is it? Quiet. He sighed dramatically. I'll come back next week. We'll handle paperwork then. Paperwork. That's what he thought was waiting for him. He had no idea what Mom had arranged. At 9:12 p.m., there was a knock at the door. Not soft. Official. I opened it to find 2 men in suits. One holding a leather folder. Are you the daughter of Margaret Hayes? He asked. Yes. We were instructed to deliver this at precisely 9 p.m. on the day of the funeral. My pulse slowed. Deliver what? He handed me the folder. On the front was my father's full name. Inside, a sealed envelope. And a set of property transfer documents. The envelope was labeled, to be opened in the presence of witnesses. I looked back into the living room. 20 people still inside. Family. Friends. People who knew exactly how alone my mother had been at the end. I walked in. Cleared my throat. I think my mom wanted everyone to hear this. Silence fell. I opened the envelope. And started reading. By the time I finished the first paragraph, my phone began ringing again. Dad. Over. And over. He wasn't calling to check on me. He had just received a notification. Because while he was boarding a late-night river cruise in Paris, everything he thought he owned had just legally changed hands. When my phone kept vibrating in my hand, I didn't answer. Not yet. The room was silent, every eye fixed on me as I continued reading. My husband chose distance over devotion, Mom's letter said. So I have chosen clarity over tradition. A few people shifted uncomfortably. I kept going. The house on Willow Creek is to be transferred immediately into my daughter's sole name. It is not to be sold, borrowed against, or co-owned by my husband. A soft gasp came from Aunt Lydia. Dad called again. Declined. The second page detailed bank accounts. Mom had separated them months ago. Savings moved. Investments reassigned. Beneficiaries updated. What remained in the joint account was minimal, just enough to avoid suspicion. The final paragraph was the one that made my hand steady instead of shake. To my husband, I release you from the obligation of pretending. You are free to travel, to love, to live as you wish. But you will not do so funded by my lifetime of loyalty. Silence pressed against the walls.
My phone buzzed again.
This time, a message preview lit up the screen. What did you do? I locked the phone and finished reading the legal attachment. The life insurance policy, the one Dad always bragged about as our security, had been updated. I was the sole beneficiary, not him. The lawyer standing near the door nodded when I looked at them. It's all legally executed, one said. Filed and processed this afternoon. Which meant at some point between his airport lounge champagne and boarding announcement, Dad had received automated alerts. Property title transfer. Account beneficiary change. Policy reassignment. Everything. I stepped outside to finally answer. He picked up before the first ring finished. Explain, he demanded. You should have come home, I said calmly. You had no right. Mom had every right. He went quiet. The house is in my name, I continued. The accounts were separated months ago. The insurance, too. That's impossible. It's filed. Heavy breathing on the other end. You manipulated her. I almost laughed. I sat beside her while you sent photos from Paris. That was business.
Was it?
Silence. She wouldn't do this, he muttered. She already did. There was shouting in the background, a woman's voice asking what was wrong. His assistant. He lowered his voice. You think this is victory? No, I replied softly. It's closure. You can't just take everything. I didn't take it. She redirected it. He exhaled sharply. I'll contest it. You can try. The truth was, Mom had prepared for that. Medical evaluations confirming her mental clarity. Signed witnesses. Video documentation of her signing. Every loophole sealed. Dad didn't know how thorough she'd been. Because he hadn't been around. She was angry, he said finally. She was awake. Another long pause. What am I supposed to do now? He asked, and for the first time, he didn't sound furious. He sounded exposed. Live, I said. Just not here. The house wasn't just walls and furniture. It was memory. Garden beds she planted. The kitchen she renovated herself. The porch where she waited for someone who rarely came home. She didn't want that space haunted by betrayal. And she made sure it wouldn't be. You turned everyone against me, he accused quietly. No, I said. You did that on your own. The call ended without goodbye. When I went back inside, the atmosphere had shifted. People weren't whispering anymore. They were nodding, understanding. Aunt Lydia squeezed my hand. She planned this carefully, she murmured. Yes, I said. She deserved to. Later that night, after everyone left, I sat alone in the living room. The house felt different. Not heavier. Safer. My phone buzzed once more. A short message this time. We'll talk when I get back. I stared at it. He still thought he had something to return to. What he didn't realize was that the locks had already been changed. Not just on the doors, but on the life he walked away from. Dad came back 3 days later. No flowers this time. No confidence either. He stood on the porch like a guest. I built this house, he said quietly. Mom paid for half, I replied. And she protected the rest.
He didn't argue.
He just looked smaller. I never thought she'd cut me out.
She didn't, I said.
You stepped out. He tried to contest the will. The lawyer shut it down within weeks. Everything was airtight. Eventually he stopped fighting. As he walked away that last time, I realized something. Mom didn't punish him. She simply made sure that when he chose another life, he actually had to live in it.